So now that we're comfortable with using our trig ratios and understanding how to find the value of like cosine 48, now we're ready to use that to solve the right triangle. So again, solving means to find all parts, all three angles and all three sides. So the first thing we're going to do is we always want to work off of the angle that we know about. Now we can find what this angle measure is using the triangle sum theorem, but I want to use this angle of 23 degrees. Now to start with, I want to find t. So I'm working off of angle B, my angle of 23 degrees, and if I want to find t, then I need to label accordingly. So for this first example, for right now, I am not going to use this side at all. So when I begin, I want to label according to what I'm trying to find. So I'm only going to label the parts that I'm using. So I'm using this side because that's what I'm trying to find. So in reference to this angle, that is opposite. And I'm going to use the hypotenuse. So my first step is to label the sides. Now that I've done that, and because I've labeled in reference to this angle opposite and hypotenuse, then that tells me which trig ratio I'm going to use. So decide which ratio to use according to labels. So which ratio uses opposite and hypotenuse? Remember so, ka, toa. So the one that uses opposite and hypotenuse is the sine. So we're going to be using the sine ratio, which is opposite over hypotenuse. Now that we do that, we're going to set up our equation. So I know I'm going to be using sine, so it's always going to go the ratio first, sine, followed by the angle measure, sine 23. Now again, remember, this is a number. It's an irrational number. Sine 23 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, so t over 34. And so now we're going to use inverse operations to find t. So sine 23 is equal to t over 34. Now, I need to get t by itself, and so right now, what's preventing t from being alone is divided by 34. The opposite of division is multiplication. So to undo division, I'm going to use multiplication, and I'm going to multiply both sides by 34. So the 34's cancel out. So 34 times sine 23 is going to get me my value of t. And I'm going to type that into my calculator exactly like I see it. 34 times sine 23. And so what I get is an approximate value, which we are going to, because again, we're talking about the Pythagorean theorem and square roots and rationalizing the denominator. So our approximate value is 13.28. So the length of T is about 13.28 units long. Okay, so we know what T is. And so now I want to find the other side length, the side S. So instead of using the Pythagorean theorem, because this is an approximate value, we're going to use our trig functions. So now we're going to go find S. So I want to label still in reference to this angle, but we're not going to be using the opposite side anymore. S is adjacent to this angle measure. So which ratio uses adjacent and hypotenuse? That's cosine. So to find S, we are going to use cosine. So we're going to set up our ratio. So again, now it's cosine 23 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So to undo division, we use multiplication. We're going to multiply both sides by 34. And we're going to type it in like we see it. 34 times cosine 23. And if you're using the Desmos, it's going to work the same way. Type it in, 34 times cosine 23. And we get 31.297 or 31.3. So S is approximately 31.3 units. If you don't have a calculator that'll do this for you, then actually setting up what you would type in is good enough, because this is the exact and this is the approximate.